So in today's video, we are going to be ranking every Bradford City player's 2022-23 campaign. If you do go on to enjoy today's video, please make sure to drop a like on there for me. If you could try and hit 100 likes on today's video, that'd be massively appreciated. Subscribe if you are new as well. We are now on the road to 7,000 subscribers, so please make sure you are subscribed if you haven't already with that post notification bell on. It's free to do so and it does massively help out. Drop a comment in as well down in the comment section down below. Let me know who's your beast, underperformer, player of the season, young player of the season, all that sort of stuff. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section down below. We're going to be going through every player, starting with Aboisa, ending with Jan Songler. Even if they've played just the first few months of the season, even if they didn't play a match, we are going to be ranking every one of the players in today's video. So make sure as well to stay tuned on the channel for tomorrow. I've got a big video dropping tomorrow at 4 o'clock, so make sure you check that out at 4 o'clock as always. But make sure to drop a like on there for me. Subscribe if you are new as well. And let's get into it. Starting out then with Aboisa, it was another injury-ridden season for Aboisa. Just the 14 appearances and only the 9 starts. He's played enough to really comment on. Had a decent form a little bit around the January time, but overall a really frustrating season, and probably, I wouldn't say one to forget, because obviously he scored his first 2 goals in Bradford City colours, which is obviously a good thing, you know, both of them at home, but it's just been a move that simply has not worked out, and I don't think it's one to forget, because he's actually managed to get on the pitch this season, a lot more than what he did last year anyway, but it's still overall been a pretty poor, disappointing season for Aboisa, so I'm going to stick him in the poor category. Next up then is Alex Gilly. Had played 44 out of the 48 league matches for us this season, and for the first half of the campaign, I'd probably put him in the either one to forget or poor category. I thought he was really, really underwhelming. The second half of the season, he showed why he should be playing for Bradford City, but again, it's still a season of, 1 goal and 1 assist in the end, according to SofaScore. It's just simply not enough from a midfielder, whether you're number 8 or even a number 6, where he played for the first half of the season. 2 goal contributions in 44 matches is nowhere near enough, and while I don't think he's been terrible, I'm going to put him in average. I think he was very lucky to get a new contract, to be honest with you, or at least be offered a new contract. We still don't know as of right now, at the time of recording, at 51 minutes past 12 on Wednesday the 31st of May, if he has signed that new contract. But overall, I'm going to put him in the average category. I don't hate the idea of putting him in there, but he's certainly not been a good or outstanding season for Gilead, so we'll stick him in average. Next up then is Andy Cook. He featured in all 48 of our league matches this season, starting 40 of them, scored 28 league goals, averaging a goal every 127 minutes with a 22% goal conversion rate. Had 8 assists as well, created 11 big chances, averaged 1 key pass per game. That man had one of the best seasons I've ever seen from a Bradford City player, straight into the outstanding category. He was absolutely incredible, and you know, I'm really glad that he has signed a new 3-year contract with the football club, because I think he can be a big part of our success next season, or he's a big part of our success this season. Hopefully he can continue that form into the next campaign, but what a season from Andy Cook, absolutely outstanding. Brad Halliday is up next then, and he featured in 46 out of our 48 matches, only missed a 2. He missed Wimbledon at home through suspension and Swindon away through illness. I thought overall, to be fair, he was one of our better performers throughout the season, chipped in with 5 assists in the league. I think he got 6 in total, averaged 2 big chances created and 1.1 key passes per game, kept 17 clean sheets with 2.3 clearances and 2.8 tackles per game. I thought he had a really, really good season, to be honest with you. I'm tempted to put him in the outstanding category. I really do rate Brad Halliday that highly. I think he's had a very, very good season. I'm only going to put 3 players in the outstanding category, and then I'll obviously pick a player of the year. So the outstanding is more player of the year nominees. I can only have 3 in there. So if some other players don't make it in there, they might be right at the end of good. But in my opinion, I think Halliday has had a brilliant season. Only had a small amount of really bad games. Unfortunately, a few of them were towards the end of the season, where it really mattered. You know, Crewe away, Carlisle away in the playoffs. But overall, I thought Halliday had a really, really good season. A brilliant first season in Bradford City colours, and deserves a spot in the outstanding category. Next up then is Kieran Kelly. Signed in January from Bohemians on a 2.5-year contract. He featured in 4 matches, starting none of them, only averaging 11 minutes per game, and just simply did not play enough. So I'm going to stick him in the didn't play enough category. With Critchlow, we don't really know what's going to happen with him next season. If he doesn't sign, I can see Kieran Kelly getting a lot more minutes next season. I do think he was the long-term replacement for Critchlow. Overall, as of right now, I can't put someone who's played 4 matches and only averaged 11 minutes per game in anywhere other than didn't play enough. Same can be said about Colin Doyle. Did not feature once all season. Is more of a goalkeeper coach, but obviously does have that playing year on his contract. Has recently signed a new, well, not signed a new contract, he's had his option triggered, so he will be a player next season as well as our goalkeeper coach, but he didn't play a single minute, so I'm going to have to put him in at the didn't play enough category. Dara Costello is up next then, and this is simply one to forget. Absolutely shocking signing. What a terrible signing this was. Was meant to be a replacement for Keane Harrott, I would say, rather than Tyreek Wright, and an absolutely shocking signing. Terrible footballer. Played 11 matches, starting 8 of them, 0 goals, 1 assist, which was Newport away, I believe, but overall, an absolutely terrible signing. How he was playing for Burnley at the start of the season, I'll never know. Absolutely shocking. I can't see him playing anywhere other than part-time football next season with like the National League North or National League South, because he is nowhere near good enough for full-time football as of right now. He's just an absolutely shocking footballer. I think he'll be going back to Burnley's academy. I think they'll be probably looking to ship him out permanently. I don't think there's even a player in there for the future. I think he was absolutely shocking. Certainly one to forget, and an absolutely terrible signing. Last season, I'm sure I would have probably had Dion Pereira in one of the top 2 categories. This season, though, it's just been one to forget for Dion Pereira. An absolutely terrible season. He featured on 14 occasions, starting 8 matches, 1 goal and 1 assist, which, to be fair, it's not much worse than some of the other attackers who's played a lot more this season, but something behind the scenes clearly must have gone wrong with Dion Pereira, because the fact he wasn't featuring over Neves and Costello, as much as Pereira didn't really show too much in the minutes he got this season, he's clearly a much better player than Costello and Neves, so I don't really know what's gone on there. I've seen a lot of Luton fans, now they've been promoted to the Premier League, on Twitter saying it's probably time to move him on permanently, even though he recently signed a new long-term contract with the football club. More than likely, they'll go out on loan to another League 2 club next season and do really well. You know, I'm sure his stock was really high at the end of last season, and then this season, I'm sure it'll be back down to where it was before his first loan spell with Bradford City. It's just been one that hasn't worked out this year. I wish him all the best, because that second half of the previous season, I'll never forget that, because he was brilliant, but this season he's been terrible, and certainly one to forget. Emmanuel Osadibe is a little bit of an interesting one. Played 12 matches for us this season, only starting the 1 which was on the first game of the season. No goals and no assists. It's really hard to comment on Osadibe, because obviously he did have that really long-term injury, with obviously him suffering a broken leg on the first game of the season. I don't know whether to put it where to really put him, because he hasn't really played, but when he has, he's looked a little bit timid, but it's kind of understandable. So genuinely, I don't really know where to put him, to be honest with you. I mean, he's played more than enough, 12 matches. Yes, 11 of them have been off the bench, but I think he has played enough. I don't know whether to put one to forget, because it probably is a little bit of one to forget, isn't it? Like, as much as it's obviously, been a terrible season for him personally, I'm sure it's not one that he's ever really going to want to look back on. Obviously, it's great that he's fit now, but in the minutes where he played, he didn't really get too much of a look in, to be fair. Didn't really get too much of the ball to really show what he can do. In pre-season, he looked really good, but in the actual competitive league season, because of his injury, I'm sure it's one that him and all the Bradford City fans really will be wanting to forget about Osadibe, and he's got a big season upcoming. I personally think he will have a big impact on us next season, but this year I think it was one to forget for him. Next up then is Harry Chapman. Played the 32 games for us this season, starting 28 of them, 2 goals and 3 assists for a marquee signing who was meant to be a replacement for Charles Vernam. Is just not enough. Suffered a really long-term hamstring injury as well at the end of the season. I don't think it was quite one to forget. I don't think he's as bad as Costello, but certainly a poor season for Harry Chapman. Played the first half of the season in that attacking midfield role, so slightly out of position, but then when he was playing on the wing, just didn't really offer enough, to be honest with you. Had a good game at home to Newport on like the 3rd game of the season, and then at home to Sutton where he scored his 2 goals in, but apart from that, just not good enough this season from Chapman. We need a lot better from him next season. He needs to be getting close to 15 goal contributions, but 5 goal contributions in 32 appearances, nowhere near good enough, and it has been a poor season for Harry Chapman. Up next then is Harry Lewis. Played every single minute of football for us this season, in all competition and friendly, apart from the first one, I think against Park Avenue, where he only played the first half, but apart from that, Harry Lewis had an outstanding season overall. Yes, he had some shaky games, and he had some shaky moments towards the back end of the season, but still overall, certainly a player of the year nominee for me. Saved 2 out of 7 penalties, although I feel like it was more than that. Did he not save 3? Or maybe 4. I feel like he saved more than 2. I think SofaScore got that one a little bit wrong. But this season had a really, really good campaign. Kept 19 clean sheets, which I think is very impressive, to be fair. He had a 73% save percentage, which I do think is also very, very good. Kept us in numerous games with some outstanding saves. His distribution is pretty decent as well, but for me overall, I think Harry Lewis has had an outstanding season. Heath Richardson was our 3rd choice goalkeeper this season. Don't think he featured at all, even on the bench, but he was travelling with the squad quite a lot. But he is technically a first team player, but he didn't play at all, so I'm going to have to stick him in the didn't play enough category. Next up then is Jake Young, and it's a little bit of an interesting one, Jake Young, to be honest with you, because he spent the first month or two of the season looking like he was actually, going to be a decent player, but the thing is, he was really inconsistent. He was either an 8 out of 10 like Walsall at home, Sheffield Wednesday at home, Barrow away where he scored, or it was a 3 out of 10 like Colchester away, Tranmere away, and then he didn't seem to really get a look in after September. It was shipped out on loan in January, actually the day we played Wimbledon away. It was only a couple hours before kickoff that actually did get announced, but really weird season for Jake Young. Overall, I'm going to stick him in average because he was either really good or really poor, so I think a middle ground would stick him in good in average, but his loan spell to Barrow didn't really work. It's been a really interesting season for Jake Young, but I think overall I'm going to stick him in average. Next up then is Jamie Walker. He had a major injury problem right at the start of the season. I think he got it in training after the first game. We didn't see him then for a number of months. He was finally back in the team though around December time, and it's just been a really poor season overall for Jamie Walker. 26 appearances, 5 goals, 1 assist is not really enough for a marquee attacking midfielder. Yes, he struggled for fitness this season, but when he has been fit, he has under-delivered. I'm going to stick him in that poor category. I don't think it's quite been one to forget. He has scored some big goals for us, but overall for me, certainly has not lived up to the expectation, what we thought we were getting when we signed him on a permanent transfer from Hearts in the summer. It has been a poor season for Jamie Walker, and we need close to 20 goal contributions from your attacking midfielder. He needs to keep himself fit as well next season, because from that point of view, he has been a little bit underwhelming for us this season, but overall I'm going to stick Jamie Walker in that poor category. Up next was Huddersfield Town at loanee Kian Harrott, and this was one that just simply did not work out, did it? He came in with loads of hype and hope that he would do really well for us this season from Huddersfield after being on loan with Port Vale at the end of last season, the previous season, scored at Wembley to help Port Vale get promoted, but it was just a loan move that didn't work out. Ended up having his loan terminated short because of some off-the-field issues with it, hair coursing or something like that, but one to forget. 5 appearances in the league, no starts, got a red card on his first game, and that kind of summed up Kian Harrott. No goals, 1 assist, which was Hartlepool away for Andy Cook's first goal at Hartlepool, but overall a really poor loan signing, and certainly one to forget. He did well, to be fair, under Neil Warnock at Huddersfield, scored a couple of goals, but his time at Bradford was an absolute rotter, and certainly one to forget. Joe O'Shaughnessy was also a really interesting loan move. He came in on loan from Wolves and didn't feature at all. He was on the bench once, I think, in the FA Cup, but really weird signing, and I think he actually was his loan terminated short in January or something like that, and they ended up moving to Macclesfield and had a few permanent spells at different non-league clubs. Really weird signing, but didn't play a single second of football. So again, another goalkeeper who's going into that didn't play enough category. Next up then is Lee Angle. Obviously, he was with us for the first half of the season. No goals, 1 assist with his time with Bradford City this season. Did manage to keep himself injury-free though this campaign, which obviously last season he had 2 major hamstring problems, but just a really poor player, nowhere near good enough. And at the time, I thought him getting a new contract was a good move. Obviously, moved on in January permanently to Sutton United, where again he had a pretty poor spell. I think he only scored the 3 goals with them. Missed a crucial penalty for them at Valley Parade as well. And I don't really know where to put him, because I don't think he was as good as Walker and Chapman, despite them having poor seasons. But I also don't think he was bad as Costello. But Costello then got the same amount of goal contributions as him. So I think I'm going to have to put Lee Angle in one to forget. Really poor season from him. Looked to have a little bit of an attitude problem as well. There were times where he was walking and jogging back, which is not what you want from a midfielder. And yeah, really poor season from Lee Angle, and certainly one to forget. Levi Sutton again was a little bit of an interesting one, similar to Jake Young in terms of minutes played at the start of the season, and then suddenly after September, October time was completely bombed out of the squad. Came back in around December time, which I think was Mark Hughes trying to say, I want to keep Levi Sutton, and obviously I need to give him minutes so teams don't come in for him around January. Eventually Harrogate Town did come in for him, sign him on a permanent transfer, and I think he's done pretty well there, to be fair. I always quite rated Levi Sutton. Did struggle for minutes though, but overall I'd say we're very similar to Alex Gilly, so I'm going to have to put him in the average category. Don't think he was a bad player whatsoever, but obviously nice to get a transfer fee in for him. Overall, though, pretty average season for Levi Sutton. Up next is Liam Rideout. Now, I still don't know how this man has got a new contract. Obviously, same with Gilead. We don't know whether he has accepted that contract or not as of the time of recording. Overall, though, pretty poor season for Liam Rideout. Played the first couple of games of the season, got 2 major injuries. Was it one with a groin and one calf or something like that? I'm not really too sure. Came back into the side, was poor. I mean, somehow Talaji Bowler didn't even get in ahead of him. That's how bloody bad Talaji Bowler was, but we'll get onto him in a moment. Liam Rideout, though, pretty poor season, just not good enough to play for Bradford City anymore. I think if he's anything more than a backup next season, that concerns me massively, to be honest with you. And yeah, pretty similar to Walker and Chapman. Had injury problems when he's played, been poor, so I'm going to have to stick him in that poor category. Luke Hendry is up next then, and Hendry's a little bit of an interesting one because he did only play in the 2 league matches this season, and in both games was just a bit meh, pretty much a 6 out of 10. In the Papa John's games, I thought he looked steady, to be fair to him. You know, I think he played Burton away at left back, but I don't really know where to put him, to be honest with you, because he only played the 2 league games, so I'm going to have to put him in didn't play enough. I'm still convinced that he will probably move on this summer. I can't see him wanting to just play 2 games again next season. That was only because Halliday was suspended and injured. He's a steady League 2 backup, but I think for his own career, he needs to go out and play some proper first team football week in, week out, and I think he is good enough to do that at a team lower down in League 2, but for a team challenging for promotion, not good enough, and I'm going to have to put him into that didn't play enough category. Next up then is Matt Derbyshire, signed in January from a team over in India. Quite remember for the life of me who he actually did sign from, to be honest with you, but it was a bit of an interesting one, wasn't it? What is he, 36? We gave him an 18-month deal, which I think is a bit interesting. He has looked okay in some games, scored a great goal away at Stevenage, scored a big goal against Carlisle, but he's just not good enough, is he? He's just too slow on the ball. His first touch is a little bit past it, to be honest with you. Matt Derbyshire, I think, poor. I'm going to have to put him in that poor category. Next up then is Matty Folds, and again a bit of an interesting one. Obviously spent the first half of the season with Bradford City, played quite a lot because obviously Liam Rideout was injured. Then in January was sent out on loan to Harrogate Town. It's my understanding that was more his wanting rather than the club's wanting, because obviously we brought in Talajibola, a bit more competition, and Matty Folds didn't see himself playing. He didn't really want to fancy that challenge, so I think Matty Folds will be moved on this summer. I don't think he can have that sort of mentality around the changing room, and yeah, it was pretty solid, to be fair. You know, I think Matty Folds, his time at Bradford City was a pretty good season, to be honest. You know, I thought he did well in the games that he played, was pretty solid defensively, was good going forward as well. His loan spell at Harrogate was pretty okay, but I quite liked Matty Folds at the time, and I was really bewildered as to why we brought in Talajibola at all, and then that ultimately meant Matty Folds wanted to move on, which is understandable from his point of view, but yeah, a good season, I think, overall for Folds, but the way that it's ended, I'm not sure what that means for his future with the football club. Matty Platt is up next then. Now, the first third of the season, I'd say, up until that game away at Mansfield, I thought he was absolutely brilliant. He got sent off away at Mansfield, and then since then was pretty average, struggled for minutes really, and I don't really know where to put Matty Platt, because overall you'd say he spent the majority of the season being average rather than good, but I still do think it was a good season from Matty Platt. I'm going to put him in that good category. I do think he is overhated by some of our fans on social media. I think Platt is a solid centre-back at this level. Yes, he's not as good as playing out from the back as Critchlow or Stubbs, but he's no nonsense and he keeps you clean sheets. I do think he's a very good defender. I hope he can find his way back into the side next season. I do think a centre-back partnership of Platt and Stubbs is a very solid partnership at this level. I think it has been a good season from Matty Platt, so I'm going to stick him in that good category. Next up then is Richie Smallwood, and I've always been a fan of Richie Smallwood. At the start of the season I was a little bit critical of him, but especially in this second half of the campaign, I think he's been very, very good. 3 goals and 6 assists for a central midfielder, I do think is very impressive. I think Smallwood has had a good season overall. I know some fans won't like that and some fans won't agree with it. You know, you see it all the time on social media, people calling him not the captain that Bradford City should have to lead us forward, but I thought Smallwood was good, to be fair. If you play him in his natural position as a number 6 to break up the play, that is what he's best at. You saw in them games against Hull and Blackburn in the cup matches, he looks so good there because that is the sort of system that suits him, where he's winning the ball back. He's not a creative midfielder. We need more of them around him, and that's why I think Gilead's look better, because Smallwood's trying to do 2 jobs at once. But for me personally, I do think Smallwood has had a good season. 9 goal contributions for a holding midfielder is pretty decent. Yes, he's on set pieces, so that obviously does contribute massively, but overall for me, I think Smallwood has had a good campaign. Next up then is Romney Critchlow. Again, another player I'm going to chuck into that good category, to be fair. I think he has had a good season on loan from Huddersfield Town, has struggled with injuries, and Simon Parker actually put out an article this morning saying that Critchlow looks like he's looking for a League One move, which is fair enough. I do think Critchlow is replaceable. Yes, he's not as good, we don't have players as good as Critchlow at playing out from the back, but defensively, I think we've got better defenders, and when you're in League 2, you need players who can defend you. I think we've only kept 10 clean sheets with Critchlow in the side, and he's also had his injury problems. I don't think he's a centre-half. I think he could do a much better job as a defensive midfielder next to a Richie Smallwood, and then you just go all out attack and just play with loads of wingers and strikers and just go for it and have your 2 holding midfielders to cover that ground. I think that could work really well. More than likely though, Critchlow will move on to a League 1 club somewhere like a Lincoln City potentially. I'm not really too too short. But for me personally, I think Critchlow has had a good season overall. Scored a crucial goal away at Northampton. Unfortunately, in the end, though, didn't really mean all too much, and I wish him all the very best. Up next, then, is Ryan East. I think, again, he's had a very solid, good campaign, in my opinion. I think he didn't get the minutes that he deserved this season. Left-footed and a good technician, good passer of the ball, got energy, got legs, wants to play a ball forward, and I think he's deserved more minutes this season, in my opinion. Whenever he's played, I think he's looked very solid. I remember away at Salford and at home to Mansfield, where he started both of them games. Looked really, really impressive. I was surprised to see him sometimes not even in the matchday squad. Didn't really make sense to me. I think he has been a good signing. I think he's had a good season, and overall for me, thoroughly deserves to be in that good category. Next up then is Sam Stubbs, signed from Exeter City on a free transfer in January, and ultimately changed our defensive structure, the way we went about it. Whenever he's fit, he's had to play because he's been absolutely brilliant, and yeah, perfect centre-half for us, you know, good in the air, good technician of the ball, a pretty decent passer. One weakness that I would say he's got is he's a bit slow, which is understandable with his injuries, so you need to partner him with a pacey centre-back or have a pacey full-back next to him. And I think overall, it has been a very good season from Sam Stubbs because he's only been here half the season rather than a full season. I can only put him in that good category. I would like to put him in the Player of the Year nominee category, but like I say, he's not been here as long as Cook, Halliday and Lewis. So for me personally, I think it has been a good season from Sam Stubbs. Let me know down in the comment section down below if you disagree. Up next is Crystal Palace loanee Scott Banks. Again, I think he has had a good season. Again, struggled with injuries at times, you know, missed 1 or 2 months of the season through injury, which was a big miss for us at the time. Overall, I think it has been a good season. What did he finish on? Was it 6 goals and 5 assists in just the 23 starts? I think he had a very, very good season. More than likely, if he does sign the new contract with Crystal Palace, I do think he'll be loaned out to a League One club, which he deserves that move, to be honest with you. He's been brilliant for us this season. I will miss him. I wish him all the best, but I do think he has had a very good season with the football club. Next up then is Thierry Nevers, very similar to Costello, one to forget, nowhere near the standard of Tyreek Wright. He was brought in as the Tyreek Wright replacement, couldn't even get into the Newport County side, so I don't know who on earth at the football club thought that Thierry Nevers would be a good signing. Terrible signing, done terrible, and nowhere near good enough to be playing in the Football League. I certainly think he'll be loaned out to the National League or even below that next season if West Ham even consider, you know, doing that. I think he's still got another year on his contract, so I think more than likely they might even try and cash in on him and potentially get a fee for him. Next up then is Timmy Odesina. Played the 4 matches in the league this season and struggled. Really, really did struggle. I think it was one to forget for Timmy Odesina. Really struggled at times. Didn't really show anything. I think in a back 4, he really, really does struggle. He's a bit similar to Critchlow. Poor-ish in the air. I think Critchlow is better than Odesina in the air, but he was brought in on a 3-year contract and hasn't really shown anything to say why we would have done that. You know, I know he did really well at Hartlepool, but in a back 4, he really seemed to struggle. If he go to a back 3 next season, I could see him getting a lot more minutes, but struggled to even make the matchday squad at times, and I don't think we've seen him feature this calendar year, I want to say, at all. So really, really poor season from Timmy Odesina. One I'm sure he'll probably want to forget. More than likely will be loaned out this summer, unless, like I say, we've maybe changed formation next season to a back 3. Overall, though, pretty poor season from Odesina. 4 players to go then, and next up is Talaji Bowler. I don't even know where to put this man. Played the 4 matches, only 2 starts. I'm going to put him in the didn't play enough category. When I did see him play, he was terrible, and I want to put as many players in this one to forget category as possible. So I'm just going to be as generous as possible and say he didn't play enough, because when he did play, he was underwhelming to say the least. Let's say that. Stockport away, that man got absolutely ran ragged. He can't take a throw in as a professional footballer. How he was playing for Rotherham in League One and the Championship, I'll never know. Really, really poor standard. I think, again, he'll probably find himself in the National League next season. Absolutely terrible footballer, but I'm just going to have to put him in the didn't play enough category. Tyreek Wright spent the first half of the season with the football club on loan from Aston Villa. Left us, though, in January to join Plymouth Argyle on a permanent basis, where it's not worked out for him there at all. It looked like we pretty much secured it to sign him on a permanent basis for £1, and then Plymouth Argyle came in, snapped him off our hands, and pretty much all their fans hate him because they don't think he's good enough. So for me personally, for what I saw from him in a Bradford City shirt, I do think it was a good season. I think he got 4 goals and 2 assists, if I'm right in saying that. Didn't really have any injury problems either, you know, kept himself fairly fit. He's pretty versatile as well, but as a left winger, absolutely rapid. Hopefully we can maybe get him back. You know, now Plymouth are in the Championship, they might want to loan him back out to us, so fingers crossed we can make that a move that happens in this upcoming summer transfer window. Overall, though, I thought Tyreek Wright had a pretty good window. Viden Oliver was one who had a pretty poor season. Again, another player who struggled with injuries, but when he has been fit, has sometimes not even really looked interested, to be fair. He was also given a 3-year deal, which I think was absolutely ludicrous looking back on it now. Just the 3 league goals, and 2 of them were scored in the same match. I don't really see what Oliver offers that Andy Cook doesn't. I think Oliver is one that if we can cash in on him and move him on this summer, I think we should do that and try and get another striker in, someone a little bit different to Andy Cook. But for me personally, I think it was a poor season from Verden Oliver. The penultimate player on this list then is Jan Songo. Played the first half of the season, came on for like the last 10 minutes off the bench if we needed to see a game out. When he did play, I thought he was fairly average. You know what you're going to get from Jan Songo, 110% commitment, not really good at actual football, to be fair. You know, he's more of a clogger and slogger, doesn't really suit the Mike Hughes style of play. Was loaned out to Walsall for the second half of the campaign, but overall I thought it was a pretty average season from Jan Songo. Now on my actual normal graphic, for some reason Adam Clayton's not on here, and I'm not really too sure why he's not on there. So we're going to leave him till the end, obviously now, but he should have been one of the first players on there, as obviously his first name begins with A. I'm going to put Adam Clayton in the average category. I thought he was pretty steady when he came in from Doncaster Rovers in the January transfer window on a free transfer, 6-month deal. Steadied the ship, what we needed in that midfield, a bit of experience, but I'm glad that he has been released and not been given a new deal, so I'm going to stick him again in that average category. But that is where I'm going to leave it for today's video. If you have enjoyed, please make sure to drop a like on there for me. If you could try and hit 100 likes, as I said at the start of today's video, that'd be massively appreciated. Subscribe if you are new as well. We are on the road 7,000 subscribers, so please make sure you are subscribed if you haven't already with that post notification bell on. It's free to do so and it does massively help out. Drop a comment in as well down in the comment section down below. Let me know your player of the year, young player of the year, most underwhelming player of the year, and your worst player of the year as well. Make sure as well to stay tuned for tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Big video dropping at 4 o'clock on Thursday, so make sure to stay tuned for that. We are kicking off the month of June with an absolute banger, so please make sure to subscribe with the post notification bell on so you do not miss that one. Thank you all very much for watching today's video. Have a great rest of your day. Big up Aaron as well for the thumbnail, and I'll see you all very soon for another one. Peace.